Hi everyone, my name is Chris and I am an OpenSciEd teacher in Connecticut. I am here to share lesson 14 from the weather unit. It's an exciting moment in the unit because we re-anchor our unit here and begin our second lesson set. If you are here, there's a little primer on how you got here. During the previous 13 lessons, we've been explaining hailstorms. And we finally, in lesson 13, put it all together and we were able to do that. And now we're left wondering, well, what about other big weather events that we hear about? And well, truthfully, maybe the kids aren't exactly wondering that, but a quick revisit to your related phenomena poster will get them there pretty quickly. Let's take a look at what this lesson structure looks like. So it is a re-anchor. Then there is no investigation in this to prep for. However, there are several sets of class handouts and things, so I left 30 minutes in there for prepping for this one. It takes place over 2 days and has one video that gets used, which contains a weather forecast, and you divide that video up into some small chunks when you're watching it. Here's what it looks like in the big picture, with 3 major chunks to be found. First is the typical notice and wonder of an anchor. The middle is trying to explain what it is we just saw. And then lastly, creating new questions and seeing what information we might need to answer those questions. Let's break down those chunks just a little bit. In the first chunk, the key moment comes when they revisit their related phenomena poster and find out there's lots of things they can't understand. And we see through a forecast that storms can be huge and make lots of kinds of precipitation. In the middle chunk, we try to model out how a big storm could do all of that, with a key moment coming when we create our class consensus model. And then lastly, redevelopment of the driving question board, adding questions and looking for additional sources of data. So it's a busy lesson, lots going on. But we figure out a bunch of things. We figure out that some storms are huge and last a long time, that they can produce lots of different types of precipitation, not just one. And we are wondering if some of the things we already know might be usable to explain large-scale storms. We find out that large-scale storms may have something to do with warm and cold air moving over long distances, like across the country. And we're left wondering what causes that air to move across those long distances and what happens when air masses meet. Let's talk about some of the key moments to focus on with your kids in these lessons. I know it's a little odd, but I think one of the things that's really important is the navigation into this lesson. So it will set up the reasoning behind why you look at weather forecasts and why we start thinking about fronts and air masses. And it comes from the related phenomena poster, where we realize that there are some things we can explain, but there's lots of bigger storms that we can't explain. And we are going to try to figure those out next. In the second day of the lesson, we come together as a group after we've had some time to sort of grapple with how these larger things might happen individually. It's a really important moment because it's going to set up the how and why questioning that you're going to use when creating your driving question board, coming up in the next key moment, which is in part 7, right after 6. And this is a challenging driving question board because you have to try to get the kids to move away from small scales and into big scales. Like, how do things move? How do weather systems move entirely across the country? Or why is there sometimes rain and sometimes snow in a weather system? So there's lots of big picture questions that you're trying to get them to ask. I have a couple of tips and tricks for managing the materials in this lesson. Let's take a look. So all of the images you see here are images that your kids are going to use during this lesson. And so you'll also notice that there's lots of colors involved, and the colors mean things. So if at all possible for you to color copy these, that would be better. I have put them all in plastic sleeves so that the kids can use dry erase markers on them, or if they want to point something out or annotate. So that's important. There are also transcripts that go with the the weather forecast, which sometimes helps the kids match up the pictures and the words that are being said, which can be kind of helpful. By the way, many of these images you're going to use again in the later lessons. So if you're investing the time and energy into color copies and protective sleeves, it'll pay off because you'll use these 2 or 3 times more. There aren't really any word wall words in this lesson. However, the words that I've listed here are ones that we've encountered and that my students didn't really fully understand. So the ideas of mechanism, accumulation, and or elevation were 3 that really threw them off. And of course, precipitation is a word left over from the earlier unit that they'll revisit or reinforce as they go about here. As an anchor lesson, this is going to seem like kind of a lot. Don't fret if you think you're missing something or something it doesn't look exactly like it shows in a teacher's guide. That's perfectly okay. You will need your related phenomena poster from lesson 1 and the initial consensus model from lesson 1, and a poster titled "Previously Used Mechanisms," which is literally just the ideas behind what we uh, could use to explain our hailstorm. You will create some new things here too. You'll have a new initial ideas model that gets created. It can be just taped right over the old hailstorm model if you want, and you'll have a brand new set of sticky notes with DQB questions and a new ideas for investigations poster. You will use all 3 of those things in all of the lesson set, which goes from lesson 14 to lesson 18. So you want to make sure you have at least a class copy of each one that's available for kids to see. So that's it, lesson 14 in a nutshell. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and if you are looking ahead to see what's coming next, the lesson 15 video will give you the same ideas and tips and tricks. Good luck.